saying. I'd like to comment on the point that you were speaking about fear. One of the quotes that I like to live by, it says, "Never let fear decide your fate." And as you were saying, when fear takes over, it just stops you from seeing the true beauty of the world. Now, getting back to your question, coming here in Japan, I truly thought there would be a little bit of a cultural barrier. But in Egypt, as I've always said to a lot of the Miss International staff, we call Japan the planet of Japan because of how exquisite we think of the values and the traditions of Japan, how Japanese people, they're extremely proud of their nation and they know how to represent themselves and their culture. Mm-hmm. They do know how to incorporate their traditions and their culture with the modern world that we live in. I kind of thought that maybe the language would be a barrier, but I've noticed that people here are extremely welcoming. They always try to accommodate us, even in the street. We could be like asking someone for a help, and they would even bring out their phones and they would try to help us. They would take from their time. So yeah, that's what I thought for me would be a little bit of a challenge, but thankfully I've had an incredible experience here. Thank you very much.
That's good to hear. Thank you very much. So, Madagascar?
I was afraid coming here to represent my country because Malagasy people have this outsider statue. I was studying in France and I was like, will I be able to represent my country here in Japan? And will people welcome my country here in Japan? And thanks God, it was till last week was an amazing experience for me as a Malagasy person.
Did you still think we have that funny hairstyle? Sometimes when I go to a country, like very far away, the country from Japan, people still think we are always wearing kimono and have funny hair. Did you think that's what we are in Japan?
No, actually I was excited to go here because Japan is like an example. When I'm sorry, I don't know if I had to talk about that, but when you have atomic bomb come on your territory and to be able to be one of the most biggest powered countries in the world is just an example. And since our independence, Madagascar is getting more and more power. And I can't wait for the day that our country will be able to become a country like yours. So I did not think that you work even all the time, I think. I just knew that this is a hard-working people here in Japan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's Heidi.
Hello, my name is Cassandra Sherry. I represent my beautiful country, AZ, and my English is very, very bad. But I'm so very happy to be here, and thank you for the commentary. I really learned about about the slide and what you showed before. So thank you.
That's good. And I'm glad that you liked it. So today we have 3 different topics for 3 different misses. And we are talking about personal challenges. Like in my case, I used to fight in a ring, so it was challenging enough to beat up other person. Yeah, you should try. Okay. So I don't need a microphone actually. Loud enough voice. So for personal challenge, it will be Miss Madagascar. Is that correct? Yeah. So could you tell me a bit about your personal challenge?
How to say that? I prepared something, so I'm gonna do it like freestyle, okay?
Okay.
Yes. I born in Madagascar, and I born like a special kid because I had double nationality. I am as French as I am Malagasy, and this is something that every parent wish for their child. So I grew up knowing that sooner or later I will leave my country and I will leave my family to go in France And actually, I couldn't wait for that moment. And when I was 14, finally, it happened. My mom took a bank credit to buy me a flight ticket to send me in France for high school. She's such a strong woman, an independent one, which is not that much seen in Madagascar. She worked hard and did sacrifices to pay back that bank credit with her maid's salary. So I remember when I left Madagascar, my feet didn't even touch the floor because I was about to go in paradise. And I was so wrong. I spent 2 years trying to introduce myself in a new family. But as far as in Madagascar, your parent is taking your cousin as their own children in France, is not the case. They make you know that you are not their child. So 2 years after, another home took me in her house. And with her husband, they just took me in pieces and helped me to be a strong and a beating woman. I was 16 and they told me, you have to make your own money. So for summer, I was waitress. And little job by little job, I became to be like every child, sweet clothes, eating in canteen for lunch. And 2 years after, I saved enough money to go back home to visit my family. And I couldn't go back home without empty-handed. I get into the top first known class preparatory school for prestigious school in France, which is Lycée Turgot. I was also at the same time in Paris Sorbonne University and working, and my parents were so proud. And I remember when I get back in the Malagasy territory, I felt ashamed of my way of thinking 4 years back, because I saw the beauty of my island actually. I feel our waves caress. I hear the beauty of the melody of our jungle, and I was breathing those fresh air in the height of our mountains. I felt blessed to burn in Madagascar, but my heart was like full of sadness because I saw that poverty, seeing all the child and orphans on the street. And that year I promised two things to myself. Every year, Esmeralda, you will back home to spend time with your beloved, and you're gonna fight for those child sooner or later. So the year after, I came back home. The year after too. But my first year in master degree was really tough because my mom had very serious health issues. And in Madagascar, hospital are firm. If you do not have money, you just die. So I thank God that I was a working student able to be there for my mom at this time. So during the summer, I decided to not go back home, but just to work 3 months in a tomato factory. And the year after, I have to end my 5 years of university with an internship. So I didn't go back home either. And after that, I found a job in a Leader Telecom group, so I did not come back home. In February, my mom tried to call me all day long. I'm sorry.
Let's cry.
That was not the target. That was not the target. But my dad passed away because of an heartache. And I remember that I felt because for 2 years I did not go back home. And I remember I was a child in the street and I was like, you are not going to wait to be a CEO of a huge firm to find a solution for this child. So I applied at Miss Madagascar, and my target was to meet hierarchy people and economic leaders to build a strong foundation for this child. But no. But I met church people, and they told me, find the funds, and we will have your back. So as a young financial controller, to be here at Miss International and do all those expenses, it's for me an investment. And my target, it's not only to make you know that Madagascar is a cartoon, but it's also a country, but it's to go back home with serious contacts, strong contact, to defend that cause. Because deep down in my heart, I know that this next generation is our country hope. It's our country's solution to be raised with love, empathy, and to have knowledge in your brain. It is Madagascar's solution. And those children are poor children, so they know about poverty. And if they became leader, the target will not to be to fill their pocket of money, but they will think about people as they who knew poverty. So I hope being here, I will find really people take my hand and help me with church build that foundation.
I think this is our fourth year to do this sort of conference. It's a business conference between Miss Internationals and also Japanese women's entrepreneurs. And a lot of people think that this international kind of pageant is really to compete with beauty and not really getting into the depths of the people's thoughts and beliefs in what you are facing, too, and representing the country. And I think I was so glad to listen and hear your story, and I really like Madagascar now.
Actually, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world, and it's a place to go in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Despite the poverty, it's really beautiful, but we.
How far is it from Japan?
Actually, 2 days to come here.
2 days. But not for her because she missed her plane again. Okay, thank you very much. I just moved to that. Thank you. We will talk about the business challenge for Haiti. Okay.
I was born in a very humble family. I had many dreams, but I never thought Madagascar. So sorry.
More tissues?
But I never thought that a man who was the owner of a fashion magazine at the time was going to choose me to participate in contest for of best modeling agency in the world. Like it was Elite Model Look. It was in China, and since then I can work very well and learn my life. I had the opportunity to travel around the world and also to represent my country in other good beauty contests such as the Miss Universe 2017. In December 2017, I founded the door of the Angelique Angels, that's my foundation in Haiti, which is a non-profit organization with the support of some friends and my family. It proposed it to help 3 types of people who are the most vulnerable in our society: orphans, elderly, and abused women. The orphans more often have a difficult past, some are from extremely poor families. Others have been abandoned or victims of physical violence, moral, and some suffer from different diseases such as AIDS and mental disability. I decided to help orphans and poor children because today I consider myself very fortunate to have many possibilities in this life. As I am from a poor family and difficult childhood, I knew the needs of these children, but I had the opportunity to meet several wonderful people in way to help me in my life. So today I would like to help the children in my country. In my organization, we offer a home for children where they can get education, food, and recreational activities. By removing the children from the streets, we are putting again to discourage the crime. In Haiti, the elderly population is vulnerable sector. More than and half of them are in poverty, and the other part suffers of physical violence. We offer to this category guidance, physical, social, and legal assistance to adults over 60 years of age who are in situation violence. The reports can be made by any person who knows about someone who needs our help. The old men or women are placed in residence with full accommodation, for example, lunch, breakfast, and dinner, medical, psychological, and nursing service for 40 hours. We are working to create a center called Assistance for Other Women in my country. We are looking for women victims of gender violence 24 hours a day or every day of the year. It will be anonymous content and advice on topics related to physical, physiological, sexual, economic, patrimonial, and violence. Our goal will be to guide the victim in different situations. They are going to be there before, during, or after an episode of violence. Since we are not intended to generate many profiles. For those who has already supported the organization by sending us a donation or giving us your time, I personally would like to thank you for your generosity, thank you for your unconditional help, and your actions in favor of our purpose and the daily efforts of our volunteers could not be so effective without your support. Thank you so much.
What could be the most difficult thing to operate your NGO?
To find
Money?
Yes, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, how do you get money now? Donation?
In my not yet. In my country, I live in my I left my country now. I'm living in Miami. I'm a model. I'm do a lot photo shoot. When I'm doing shooting, I take my cash and do something in my foundation because a lot of children in my country needs very help.
Does anyone do business here? No? But what do you do?
I have my own graphic design and journalism company. So I make posters, flyers, business cards and everything to promote other businesses out in the world and online.
Are you a graphic designer
Yes.
yourself? When did you start your business?
I'm still a student, but I figured that I already learned very quick and I want to learn more. So that's why I started making flyers and posters for companies of my friends. And then they said, why don't you just start your own business while studying? So I started my own business while studying, and now I'm learning and working at the same time.
Do you have any suggestion to Mr. Giti to get more money to fund? Any good idea? I want to listen to that too.
Well, I think modeling is already a very good way to earn good money, but if I were you, maybe you could do online a little bit more. Like for example, I am now vlogging the Miss International pageant, and maybe you could start vlogging your own life, because I think a lot of girls are interested in the modeling world and they can see what you are doing then. And on the online business, that's like it's a very new business nowadays, and you can make really good money out of it if you get people interested in your life.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And also one suggestion from Chairman Shimomura Kaicho. So she is one of the most powerful and successful women business person. Do you know? How can we get money for your business? Because her problem is to get funds. Yeah.
I need money,
Yeah.
but not really.
Yeah.
So
Funds.
if someone can give something like donation, yes, it's okay.
Yeah.
Not really cash.
Yeah. But like my case, I mean, I don't need money for myself, but I need money for the business operations, because you need to pay for the staff, and it's not only for ourselves. And it's always an issue with any businesses, because it's not enough money for if you want to expand. You always need money, right? Even to dive, it's not free, because you need to have equipment, boat, and everything, and then we always talk about getting funds. But all the people who are quite active are not necessarily good at making money either. Because like in her case, she talks to fish in the water, and she's not very good at talking to people to get funds on the land. So maybe one good business advice from Shimomura Kaicho.
Business advice. That's very simple. We do. Someone feels happy, the money comes in. Only that. Just help and just glad, those just comfortable. That's it. It's making the money. So about the foundation, it's very difficult to someone help us. For example, with international, it's same. So I don't want to ask someone to give me the money. So that is very difficult. So I think if you need money, you make money yourself. Some business, something, it's easier and faster.
Donation.
I think so.
Yeah.
Donation is very difficult. Very difficult.
Maybe you can give more idea. You want to? Okay.
I have an idea. Just like the problem in Haiti, you have that problem in Kenya, whereby you have a lot of orphans and street kids out there, and they have nothing. So the best way I got an idea was to create a forum, which I created last year. So this forum, we invite different people to come, and these people, a form of help cannot only mean money. These children need clothes, these children need food. It's not all about the money. So we invite different people. We invite MCAs in our city, in our counties, the ministers. Though many of them don't come, but a lot of people do come, and they don't just bring money. Some of them bring food, some of them bring clothes, and this has really helped those kids. So it's like it's not a business. It's kind of a way of creating activities and forums to bring a lot of people so that we can help these kids. And I think that will help.
Hello everyone, I am Tanya from Zimbabwe. Well, in connection with your issue, I think it's the best way to help the people in need is to discover their talents. And they can use their talents to put food on their table, to make them better people for tomorrow. For an example, we have disabled people, we have so that they can have something tangible to give to the world. Being underprivileged doesn't mean you can't reach what you want. So educate them on how to live their life, how to discover their talents mostly so that they can reach out for tomorrow, what they want for the world and what they want to be seen in the world as in this world that we are living in. So I think discovering talent, what they are capable of, and show it to the world. People are very interested in such things like that. Tourists and all that, they can be interested in seeing people singing, creating groups, making crafts and all that. It can help as well.
From my experience, I am agree with Zimbabwe because if you discover your talent, you can find the solution. Well, 6 months ago, I lost my job because my country is suffering a political crisis. Many people lost their job, I included. But I was 3 months in this working, and I am so sad. And I am agree with Ms. Kimura because when I was sad, I don't found a job. No. When I changed my mind, I found a solution with the problem. Well, I discovered a new skill in my life. I started to make a handmade accessories and take advantage for the social media and all my products of earrings, of collars, handmade by me. I start to sell this in the Facebook and Instagram. My friends help me, and the next month I earn money to maintain my family, my house, and 3 months after I found a new job. I work in a digital marketing agency, and I work like a video marketing specialist. But I started industrial engineering, but I combined the process of the engineering with the marketing digital because my old job was as a TV presenter in important news TV show in my country, and I combine all my skills to find a solution. You can do it. You have any other skills. You can use this to find a solution. You can do it. Only you need to believe it.
While you're discussing here anyway, so that's what I'm hoping for everyone to happen too. Just to get some ideas and good ideas in him you can use when you go back to your country. That would be very, very good. And so you can continue talk as a group discussion, but I want to talk to Egypt to talk about the cultural challenge.
Cultural challenges and issues in my country. Well, first I'd like to say that I'm extremely blessed and grateful to be today among us some of the most empowering and strong women of the Japanese society. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to give you a different look regarding my country. I'm a firm believer that for a wound to heal, it must be exposed. That's with every single social and cultural situation. Whether it's in my country or in any country, we need to have an open discussion. Such as in my country, it's the women's situation and representation in many fields as well as aspects of the society. The roots of cultural issues in my country are deeply connected and dictated by different ideologies. You see, it goes from traditional to extremist to open-minded, and each ideology, it's as if they speak a different language. And as they say, and from my expertise as an interpreter, sometimes lots of things get lost in translation. You see, the essence of all issues I see, in my region of the world is the lack of understanding for the core values of coexisting and respecting each individual's opinion and point of view. Now, I'm a firm believer that for us to reach justice and gender equality in any country, in any society, at workplace, as well as to be accepted as active members of society, we must take example of nations such as Japan, where each and every person's opinion and input is extremely valued and appreciated. Now, bear in mind that Egypt's location, being in the heart of the Middle East, as well as in the north of Africa, it does affect a great deal of people's traditions and mindset. To some, it could cause a source of an identity crisis, and that's something we're trying really hard to fight. One second. Now, actually, times now are changing in Egypt. There seems to be a new day on the horizon, and that's giving us a lot of hope. The Egyptian parliament have seen great changes. Actually, the percentage of female representation is now 14.3%, which is the highest since 1975. Also, electricity rates across Egypt, they have decreased as well. They used to be 25.3% and now they're 20%. In my previous year in pageantry, actually one of my causes, it was education. To some might know, I volunteered at the age of 17 years old in South America. It's an experience that completely changed my life and perspective as a young woman. It made me realize how much education and providing medical care to children, it's something extremely crucial. I'm trying not to get emotional, I'm sorry. Actually, education for us, it's important, especially in the upper side of Egypt, where it's a very male-dominant region of Egypt. So there really always, there's a United Nations campaign there. And I've tried before coming here to actually cooperate with them, and I will be continuing, obviously, when I get back. Now, in the few years in Egypt, there was some winds of change. Women are actually now, this might sound as a shock, most of the Egyptian families, the main provider for them, 40% actually of Egyptian families is women. And just something for you to know about like the society, it could seem as a shock for you to think, but Middle Eastern societies is extremely woman-driven. It's the woman that controls everything in the household, in work. It's something that could seem a bit of a shock, but it is true. Also, as a young Egyptian woman, I did have to face a lot of cultural issues. The fact that from a very young age, I was able to travel abroad, whether it's to study or to volunteer, there seems to always be a certain aspect that I see of elder generation being intimidated, especially by young women who are carrying a different mentality, a different way of thinking. And it's something that we really are trying so hard to change. Personally, I would like to share an experience. I've actually had to quit one job because my boss, who was 55 years old, he really hated the idea of me being 18 years old and having a bit of a higher rank as an interpreter in the job, which is a bit disappointing because he should have taken me as a daughter or as someone to work with to teach. Because yes, maybe I have skills in language, but definitely age gives you more skills than anything else. Also, one more thing that I would like to comment when it comes to cultural issues as a miss. The Egyptian society, it seems to have a very negative image and perception of what a beauty queen is. I think it's also around Africa, which seems to be a bit of an issue. But I truly believe that the stigma of the negative aspects of how people portray beauty queens is to blame because of people who work within the pageantry. Now, I'm very grateful to tell you that I have been currently, I think, almost 2 years in pageantry in my country, trying as hard as I can to change that perspective. And actually, people are starting to have a bit of a change of heart. Now, for me, a Miss, or Miss International, she's not just a pretty face. She's an intelligent, well-spoken queen with a very empathetic heart. She doesn't represent a certain social class. She does not represent certain criteria of society. She's relatable, she's approachable, and most important, she's a queen with a heart. Now, my country, I know that it's facing lots of difficulties as my beloved continent is, but I'm a firm believer that setbacks, they always lead the way for greater comebacks. Gochicho, arigatou gozaimashita.
If we go to Egypt, what do men think about us? Because they're not very traditional Japanese either. And in Japan, it's not, I don't think it's bad, but I don't, what do you think?
What?
How do Japanese men treat you, like seeing as a woman?
They treat me like a foreigner.
Okay.
Foreigner.
It's not that-
Oh, you speak good Japanese.
What do you think if we go to Egypt and explain she dives in the water without breathing over to minutes and talking to the creatures and use the fights in the ring?
Well, I think it actually depends on which age group you're communicating with, as I think it's also in Japan, because the stay that I've had here in Japan, I noticed that there's a lots of links between the Japanese community, society, and also the Egyptian one. We're very traditional in a very good way. We want to make it forward, yet holding on to our traditions. So some of them, especially the elder generation, they may have a bit of a closed mind, but definitely more of a younger generation that have an open heart and an open mind. And when it comes to actually how they would perceive a Japanese woman or the Japanese people, they're very welcoming to the Japanese people because they're one of the most respectful people of our culture. As I was talking to Mr. Fred yesterday, I was telling him that it's extremely heartwarming for me and very surprising. When I even see people in the street, Japanese people, they want to take a photo with me, they say how much they love my country and how much they visited. And I've had a brief conversation with the ambassador of Japan in Egypt, and he did comment to me that the percentage of Japanese tourists did increase in the last 2 years. So you're more than welcome to come to Egypt, and you have to try the food, and we do not have camels in the street.
Thank you very much. I'm getting different notes every minute because I really didn't follow the time because I was quite active in the discussion and I didn't want to stop it. So thank you very much for the panelists. And we go back to the group discussion now, and we change the plan a little bit because each group will select any final challenges and discuss, and you have 25 minutes to discuss within each group, and you need to select one miss, one miss to present, and so one miss to present.